one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next order of business is the spotlight. This will turn over to Ms. Keys.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our spotlight section of our agenda. For tonight, we'd like to honor Norwalk Public School retirees. The Norwalk Board of Education is proud to recognize the teachers, administrators, and staff members who have announced their retirements this year. We would like to, as a board, acknowledge many of these members. They couldn't make it this evening. They will be having a breakfast to acknowledge their years in service, and we appreciate what everyone has done to help out Norwalk Public Schools and help out the students. Over the course of their careers, the people we honor today have devoted countless hours in service to the children of Norwalk. Many have held a variety of roles with us, with titles like principal, teacher, secretary, custodian, or paraprofessional as part of their history with Norwalk Public Schools. Others have committed their talents in other areas that are vital to the District of Norwalk. In all cases, their influence has touched many. Students, parents, colleagues, and the community will attest to the legacy that they all have left behind. As I mentioned earlier, the retirees will be recognized next month at a breakfast in their honor. All of us here on the board offer our deepest gratitude for their years of service to Norwalk Public Schools. We have a whole list, many people, and I'm going to just briefly mention their names. We'd like to acknowledge the following: Michelle Ahern, who's the secretary of Brian McMahon; George Benedetti, who's a teacher at Norwalk High; Adele Bernstein, teacher at Brookside; Annette Borer, a teacher at Brookside; Grace Carpenter, a secretary at Norwalk High; Shirley Carlos, a teacher at Tracy; Ellen Collins, a teacher at Fox Run; Tony DiTrio, our principal at Kendall; Lisa Eastwright, teacher at Kendall; John Apofanio, a teacher at Central Global Studies; Lynn Federici, teacher at Rhoton; Ellen Gaber, teacher at Brian McMahon; Diane Gould, a teacher at Tracy; Lynn Gorsh, teacher at Brian McMahon; Nancy Greenberg, teacher at Brian McMahon; David Hay, who is our principal at Brookside; Michael Horvath, a teacher at Brian McMahon; William Jackson, a custodian at Brian McMahon; Meryl Launer, teacher at Norwalk High School; Cheryl Lyons, teacher at Marvin; Jerry McGrath, teacher at Brookside; Mark Moniz, a custodian at Brian McMahon; Mary Jo Pecora Runkle, a teacher at Fox Run; Deborah Poley, teacher at Tracy; Mark Reed, teacher at Silvermine; Nadia Rodriguez, teacher at Tracy; Joanne Rogers, paraprofessional at Marvin; Deborah Rosenblum, teacher at Kendall; Nicholas Sachinelli, teacher at Norwalk High School; Christina Santos, teacher at West Rocks; Janet Sell, teacher at Brian McMahon; Linda Shea Vantine, teacher at Tracy; Arlene Steinfeld, teacher at Marvin; Janice Vino, teacher at Cranberry; Lupita Williams, teacher at Columbus Magnet School; Patricia Yarnold, secretary at Norwalk High School. Again, many of these people could not attend this evening. They will be having a breakfast in their honor, but we'd like to acknowledge their years and years of service for Norwalk Public Schools. We're going to continue on with Spotlight. We do have people here tonight that are available to come. Our first person up is Rob Pennington. He's the Southwest Connecticut Ed Camp organizer. The Board of Ed recognizes teacher Rob Pennington for his recent work in organizing the second annual Southwestern Connecticut Ed Camp, which took place on Saturday in March at Brian McMahon High School. For those of us unfamiliar with the Ed Camp model, it is a unique professional development opportunity. Ed camps are created by educators for educators, and attendees choose the topics that are being taught. Sessions are determined on the day of the event, and anyone who attends can be a presenter. As one of the organizers for this event, Mr. Pennington joined with teachers from other districts from the area to put together this unique opportunity for teachers as well as administrators. Over 200 educators attended. Mr. Pennington's initiative and passion for professional learning is something that's not new. His Ed Camp bio reads that he loves all things technology and is always trying to implement new tools to personalize learning for all students. He believes in collaborating with others to foster conditions that create a 21st century learning environment where creativity is nurtured and student learning is revered. In addition to his work with Ed Camps, Mr. Pennington has been selected as a 2016 Fund for Teachers Fellow, who will be part of the group of teachers who will attend the International Society of Technology and Education Conference in Denver, Colorado, to learn about tangible resources and hands-on teaching strategies. Mr. Pennington currently serves as Interim Curriculum and Instruction Site Director at Cranberry Elementary School and is a lead tech coach for the district. He has been social studies teacher at Roten Middle School, a team leader, and a director of the Strive after-school program. The Board of Education, all of us here would like to congratulate Rob for his work on the Southwestern Connecticut Ed Camp and for all of his work on behalf of our teachers and students. I know, Mr. Barbas, did you want to say a few words before we have him come up?
Thank you. I just wanted to personally thank Rob for everything he's done for our district. I've known Rob personally, not only as a parent when he taught my son at Roten, but also we've been involved in an exchange program with a grant known as the Teaching of Critical Languages program, and he produced videos and went way out of his way when he did not need to. I know he's an awesome tech coach. You should follow him on Twitter. You won't understand about 3/4 of what it says because it's so technical, but he is such an asset to Norwalk Public Schools, and I'm very thankful that we've had this opportunity to spotlight his contribution to our institution.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Barbas. Rob, do you want to come up and meet the board, and if you want to say a couple of words as well?
Congratulations, Rob. Thank you, Rob. Good job. Congratulations.
Rob, do you want to say a few words if you wanted to? Totally up to you. No pressure.
I really just wanted to highlight the teachers and educators and administrators who came. They're the ones who should be spotlighted tonight because they gave up their time on a Saturday to come and learn for the betterment of our, teaching profession for our students. So, thank you very much.
We also have tonight under spotlight is Sean Walters, who an Eagle Scout project that he's worked on. Sean is a Brian McMahon sophomore, is honored tonight for the completion of his Eagle Scout badge in 4.5 years. For his Eagle Scout service project, Sean built 3 picnic tables for the Columbus Magnet School outdoor schoolyard habitat classroom. He garnered all the supplies to make the tables and provided leadership to several volunteers who helped him build the tables. The picnic tables provide a place for teachers and students to sit for outdoor lessons. Only 4 out of 100 Scouts become Eagle Scouts. Sean is currently a Boy Scout with Troop 14, which is chartered by St. George Greek Orthodox Church on West Rocks Road in Norwalk. He has held several leadership positions with the troop, including quartermaster and patrol leader. Sean has completed 32 merit badges, 21 of them are Eagle required. He has been a Boy Scout since 5th grade and started as a Cub Scout with Pack 68 at Fox Run Elementary School. In addition to his accomplishments in scouting, Sean is also a member of the marching band, honors Wind Symphony, and the jazz bands as well. He plays alto, soprano, and tenor saxophone. He also runs cross country, indoor and outdoor track for Brian McMahon. Sean is the 3rd son to receive the Eagle Scout Award. He joins his older brothers, graduates of Columbus, Roten, as well as Brian McMahon High School, who are also Eagle Scouts. Tonight, we congratulate Sean as well as the entire Walters family. Sean, are you here tonight to come up?
Congratulations.
Very impressive, Sean. Is there anything else you haven't done yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, but I hope continue to do more.
Great. Thank you so much. That will end our spotlight section this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Very inspiring.
Absolutely.
All right, next item on the agenda is public comments. Mr. Barbas.
Okay, so the list. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, we have a long list of public speakers. Please, when you come up and give your name and address for the record, you are allowed 3 minutes. After 2.5 minutes, I will put my hand up, and at 3 minutes, I will tell you your time is up. So the first speaker is Shiloh Martin Adam.
Hi, I am Shiloh Martin Adam. I am the PTO president at Brookside School. I want to talk about the full-time Brookside preschool. This is not the 50-50 part-time program that will be on Allen Road. Brookside has a great full-time preschool program serving 40 children. It is an accredited program with certified, experienced, beloved teachers. Norwalk Public Schools wants to switch this summer to the Ellie program, a non-accredited program with uncertified teachers. The current full-time preschool program at Brookside is highly regarded. That's why so many NPS staff have put their own children through the program. And that's why there are concerned parents and staff here tonight. I encourage you to measure success in the graduates of the current program. One example I easily found, my own daughter is a current 3rd grader who went to Brookside Preschool. Half of her 3rd grade academically talented class attended Brookside Preschool. Half. That is a statistically significant sign of the program's success. Parents for the 40 spots assigned for fall still have not been notified by Norwalk Public Schools about the changes to the program. The criteria for selecting a preschool for one's child are incredibly personal. Because of the timing, the parents of the 40 spots will have no say. Full-time spots at other preschools in Norwalk filled up months ago. Did you know that Brookside staff were told earlier this school year that our existing program would be placed under the Ellie umbrella? But just a few weeks ago, we were told the opposite. And last month, Brookside staff completed all the steps for another 5 years of accreditation. Why was that allowed to happen if NPS management knew this change was coming? Keep our current preschool teachers and aides and have them teach the program that the parents were promised. And if you must, let them lead a slower transition to Ellie at Brookside, aiding accreditation, serving as mentors to incoming non-certified staff. Last week at the Early Childhood Council meeting, the council was surprised that parents and teachers were angry. This had been in the works since Dr. Rivera was superintendent. Lots of ideas started months or years ago. It's when you begin the implementation and how you do it that counts. At the same meeting, Ellie was referred to as the program of choice. That's confusing because I still haven't found proof that the outsourcing was bid to anyone but Literacy How. Where was our opportunity to find an accredited program with certified teachers? The process failed by not making the changes far enough in advance, by not communicating with the stakeholders, by not choosing an equivalent or superior program.
3 minutes.
At your June meeting, you will vote on implementing Ellie for fall. Please vote no. It
3
is
minutes.
not what's best for Brookside School. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Carrie Rice. Remember, it's 3 minutes. Please announce your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Rice. I live at 188 Flax Hill Road. Excuse my speaking voice. I am here tonight to talk about a topic that is not on the agenda tonight, and that to my knowledge has not been on any agenda up to this point, and that is the elimination of two very special preschool programs at Brookside School. My husband and I were recently blindsided by this information. Our experience with Brookside began in 2010 when my husband and I left our then 3-year-old son in the care of Mrs. Jennifer Colarossi. He is now a nearly 9-year-old AT student who loves sports, plays violin, and has a piece of art showcased right here in the building tonight. It continued with our second son, who is now a creative, curious, and empathetic first grader, and budding young astronaut who loves to read. We are now coming to the end of our 5th year with Mrs. Colarossi, as my daughter is completing her first year in preschool, where she has learned to problem solve with peers, develop leadership abilities, and most importantly in her 4-year-old world, conquer the monkey bars. Thanks to Mrs. Colarossi and her wonderful team, my children have grown into well-rounded citizens. To say that my children have had a solid start to their academic career would be an understatement. To say that we would be saddened that my daughter cannot finish preschool with Mrs. Colarossi would be an even greater understatement. Brookside Preschool has left a lasting impression on our family and many others. It is a shining example of all that is good and right about early childhood learning. Let's allow there to be multiple preschool options for parents in Norwalk Public Schools. Choice is good. Choice makes Norwalk attractive to families in a way that one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter models do not. I urge you to allow Brookside Preschool to stay as it is, a nurturing and developmentally appropriate, play-based place of learning. Thank you. And if I have a few seconds left, maybe the parents for the Brookside program could stand up. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Steve Colarossi.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Colarossi. I live at 27 Plymouth Avenue, and yes, my wife is Jennifer Colarossi. She's a Brookside preschool teacher who will be displaced by the decision to privatize the Brookside preschool program. But she's going to maintain her salary. She'll be placed in a higher grade, which means that her work hours will be less, because right now, Abby Peterson and Jen Colarossi are with their students from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. And in addition to all the duties of a teacher of planning and implementing the plans, the job is also physically demanding, right? Getting down on the floor, playing with the children, approaching them on their level. And they also have the added responsibility with some of their younger students of changing diapers. So our arguments to save the Brookside preschool program isn't about making their jobs easier, because they're going to have jobs in the system. Rather, it's about a very simple question, and that is, why has there been no announcement formally made to the parents to give the parents a voice as to which program they think is best for their children? With this lack of knowledge comes a number of very serious concerns. When the instructional specialist for early childhood was asked at the Early Childhood Council meeting last week why there had been no notice given to parents, why there had been no plans shared with parents, parents were told, well, there's no contract in place, but after the contract's in place, then we'll have a meeting. And I ask you, what message does that send to parents? After a contract is signed, it's too late for their input. It's too late for them to have any informed consent as to the change that is being planned for their children. And what's, I think, exacerbated the frustration of many people with this issue is that when these parents and others posted their concerns on the Norwalk Parents for Education Facebook, they were entreated first to misinformation by a member of the board's executive committee who said that this decision had nothing to do with the Board of Education. It was entirely an Early Childhood Council decision. And that's utterly false. The Brookside preschool program is in an NPS facility. It uses staff hired and paid by the Norwalk Public Schools. So it is an NPS program over which this board has authority. And when this particular member of the executive committee didn't obviously like some of the dissenting opinions, he attacked one of the posters, going so far, despite the smirking, to claim that one very well-regarded preschool provider was motivated by what he described as fearing that she would lose the gravy train. If you support this decision, you're supporting a process which has demeaned the input of parents, demean the choice that should exist. And I think this board and each member on this board is better than that. You have an opportunity to send a message. The vote you take, whether Brookside will be privatized or not, speaks far more than the educational program that will be implemented. It will speak to the respect that parents have for the education of their children. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Brenda Penn Williams.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Penn Williams. I reside at 21 Karen Drive, Norwalk. I come to you today very upset. And what I'm getting ready to do is read this letter that I sent to Dr. Adamowski, and I copied all of you on, but I just want everybody to know. I'll read it. Within the last 72 hours, I have received 3 disturbing complaints. Now I have to change that to 4. Okay, 4 disturbing complaints about High Road School, which allege child abuse. I have been told that children are coming home with bruises and scratches from the restraining process in which the school has implemented. These parents feel as though they have been disrespected, intimidated, isolated, and manipulated during their tenure at High Roads. Who is minding the shop from the Norwalk Public Schools? The children who suffer the alleged abuse do not want to attend school, per their parents. The children are crying, screaming, and shouting on a daily basis. Please don't send me back there. These children do not deserve abuse through punishment. The alleged horrible treatment that these children are receiving, bruises and scratches, is unacceptable and must stop. Also, parents allege intimidation tactics when they make a complaint, including the school threatening to call DCF and recommending the removal of children from their homes. You must investigate the school and their practice of restraining. Being that these kids are mandated placements, Norwalk Public School is ultimately responsible for these children's well-being. And I just want to say this. I brought the parents. They're going to come. One parent that I talked to today, he is not here. I think this is terrible. I really do. I think it's terrible. Children are people too. They are loved. And it is your responsibility to do something. And I think you need to close that school immediately, because this is horrible. And this is happening to minority children. And I am very concerned and upset about it.
Our next speaker is Regina Russell.
Hi, I'm Lisa Russell, Regina Russell's mother. I'm going to speak on behalf of her.
I'm Regina Russell. I'm nervous right now. My mom's going to speak for me. My anxiety is kicking in.
My grandson has been attending High Roads, and it's been a very great concern of mine of the complaints that he come to me with as far as his restraints. I question his mother, and it's always, they make it seem as it's my grandson's fault, okay? He's in a school where it's supposed to be therapeutic. It's not. He don't want to go outside where he lives. He doesn't even come to my house anymore because he don't want to go outside, okay? He's coming home with bruises on his body, okay, that no one has called to say, well, this happened to him in school, okay, and it has happened. And the crying, no one has to do anything to him, he cries. He don't want to go to school. I feel that, I visit the school many times, because I had to pick him up because of the fact that he sat in class and he peed because they keep him in timeout to where they won't let him go to the bathroom. I had to take change of clothes on many occasions, and they know my face there very well. Okay, or I had to send someone else to take a change of clothes because he has urinated, and they said, well, he's stripped naked. Why did he strip naked? Because why would a child want to sit in urine? Dignity, we all have it, and we have the right to our dignity. Okay, now, the last episode where he was abused is when he came home with bruises, and he told me, he said, Nana, I have to tell you something, I got kicked in my head. I called his mother immediately. The next day is when she ended up taking him to the doctor, said, you know what, something's not right, and I'm tired. I'm tired. Yes, there's issues, but how can he get better if he's in a school that's making him worse? Okay? Yes, he needs to be somewhere. Yes, he does, but not in a school where he's being abused. He's come home with marks. He's crying to me. I'm one person. All I can do is speak my voice, and I will continue to speak it, and I'm glad to be speaking it for all those who are there, who's going through what we're going through. It should have been done a long time ago. But all I get is like, it's his fault, it's his fault. It's not always the child's fault. And as a parent, we need to stop saying, my child, you know what? It's probably his fault. I know him. No, you don't know the school, and you don't know the teachers. It's not always their fault. But something needs to be done. There's no cameras. I saw the padded rooms. I felt like he was in jail. That's not a school for my grandson. That's not therapeutic. That's abuse.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nancy Michelle.
Hi, my name is Nancy Michelle. I reside at 261 Ely Avenue. Today I come before you because I also have a child that's attending High Roads, and it's been a long journey, and like the previous speaker, we tend to think children with mental health issues need to be restrained and at all times that they're agitated or aggressive. Sometimes the children are not aggressive. Sometimes they're pushed to be aggressive. My daughter was placed in a room for 4 hours per day, timeout by the state of Connecticut, 10 minutes, with 4 people on her. She's about 56 pounds with clothes on. On Friday, she came home with scratches on her face, underneath her arm. Every day she's complaining that when she inhales, she can't breathe, it hurts, because they pin her down on the floor, put their knee in between her back. They cuff her like she's a prisoner. My daughter never once urinated on herself in school, never once stripped, but I get calls, she's stripped. Oh, she was being aggressive. Let's call 211 on her, 911, and it's supposed to be a therapeutic school. That is not therapeutic at all. I feel there is another way. There's no cameras in the school, and it's like the children, just because they have mental health issues or little issues going on, we tend to think it's always them. It's not. I feel like High Roads needs to be investigated. I don't know where else to go to ask for help. Thank you.
Barbara Prophet.
My name is Barbara Prophet. I reside at 138 Strawberry Hill Avenue here in Norwalk. I also a parent from my daughter to attend High Roads, and she bees in timeout like every day. She getting so aggressive from what she go through at school till it's just unbearable. Something needs to be done. Thank you.
Jose Luis. No, okay, he had signed in. Joseph Jandirko, please.
Good evening, Board. Again, I apologize for my voice. I have a 2-week-old at home, so I haven't been getting the most sleep. But I'm here to talk about middle school redesign again, third time. I've attended each of the community outreach sessions conducted by the Board of Education and Dr. Adamowski. As I sat through all the community meetings, the theme presented by parents from South Norwalk, East Norwalk, West Norwalk, and all over Norwalk is that change is needed in our school system. These changes must be properly planned for, and the planning is key to allow for the change to take hold and improve student achievement. This does not appear to be evident in the actions taken by this board. The creation of a plan taking into account all stakeholders' concerns is lacking. A hurried timeline will only lead to struggles and increase the likelihood of failure. More time is needed to plan this change correctly. Middle school redesign is a monumental shift for the city of Norwalk and its middle schools. Excuse me. Many people have voiced concerns for this shift and its shortened timeline. Parents and teachers have voiced this concern, and teachers have also voiced their concerns about having to switch subjects or even teach multiple subjects. However, the decision was made by the board, and the BOE moved forward. We are rushing to implement more math before developing a proper curriculum. We have heard about the opportunities for flexible collaboration and deep learning and block scheduling, but this is not possible without providing proper planning, time, and teacher training. No meaningful professional development has taken place or been announced at the middle school level for teachers to learn how to teach in the block schedule or to support taking on new subject disciplines. Planning and professional development are essential, especially for teachers new to a discipline. Next year, I will be asked to teach social studies and science. I have never taught science before. Both subjects are developing new curriculum, new standards, using new textbooks and new materials. I will have less time to prepare for my classes, but more to learn personally and even more to teach my students. More will be expected of myself and my colleagues without the proper professional development.
3 minutes.
I implore you on behalf of the members of the community, my students, and my teachers to listen to our input. Please, you are setting us up for educational chaos.
Our next speaker is William Graham, maybe? Can't read the handwriting. Jackson. Oh, Jackson, yes, sorry. William Jackson. I don't know, the G.
Good evening, everyone. My name is William Jackson. I live on 2256 Flax Hill Road. Not a complaint or anything like that. I just want to continue to work. I put in my request to delay my retirement. I put my retirement early around November. But the reason why I wanted to continue my work, because I worked there, and not knowing that 1993 I started there. And when Private Man was first built, the company I worked for, fabrication, we put the I-beams up, and my job was put the railings up. So when I started working there in 93, things looked familiar to me. I didn't know, but I put the railings up in the hallway, and now I've been there 21 years, and I served my country 28 years, so I'm getting a pension from that now. So I just want to delay my peer pressure to retire, because I heard they're going to take my benefit and fire me. So that was the reason why I put early retirement, but they said I don't have to retire because I'm on the old pension plan, and there's no discrimination to age, because right now I'm 81 years old, and I'm sorry, I'm still healthy, and the only thing I ever had 2 years ago, I came with prostate cancer, and I beat that. I 1 to 10, I had a 6, and overcame cancer. I'm free from cancer. And I have no medication. I'm A1, so I just want to continue to work. If I cannot continue to work in the Board of Ed, I'd like to apply for a central kitchen, because I have a Class C license to work in the kitchen. So I'd like to continue to work for the city of Norwalk. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Alvin Mosby.
Yes, my name is Alvin Mosby, 6 Brook Hill Lane. I'm an officer with the Upsloop Union, and on behalf of Mr. Jackson, he's the one that came to me about his retirement, and I talked to him. The problem he's having right now, that he was nervous that he was hearing a lot of the rumors going around that they might force him out, he might lose his benefits. And he did a delay with me at the time, sent it to Dr. Dulewski, informing that he would be laying his retirement until further notice. What he did was, I checked with the pension board. He haven't submitted no application yet, so what we doing right now, that if y'all could sit there and delay his retirement, if he could stay on, because he's a good worker, and he got about 23 years with the Board of Education. He come to work every day, no problem, stuff like that. What his concern was that he wanted to get at least maybe about 25 years in, so he about 2 years off. So if they could sit down with him, go over some option with him, wouldn't be no problem, stuff like that, you know. That's what we're looking at right now with the union right now. So we want to make sure Mr. Jackson be protected over at Brian McMahon, I'm saying. And also I want to talk about my vacation, advanced pay vacation and stuff we having problem with. Between 2015 and 16, they approved all the custodian stuff, vacation pay, and I still got about 7 days left, and I was told that I wasn't going to get my advance pay at all. So as an officer, I had sent a letter to Dr. Adamowski about the problem was going on between our advance pay. And the only problem I'm having with now, it's not coming from the school around us, it's coming from uptown, like an HR department. That's the only reason we have it now with the union stuff now. They're sending out forms out to me, and they keep changing it. The one that came out to me said that my advance pay is on it. Then the one I got now is saying that it's off and stuff right here. And I got proof right here to show that with the union and stuff like that, you know. And the form supposed to come out from 2016-17, supposed to be the one with our advance pay, but they keep changing it. That's why we trying to look into it right now, I'm saying. So that's why we having a problem with, you know. And I feel like that because the contract expired in June 30th, so they should at least honor that till next year, because we about to start going to the table right now for negotiation now. So all the guys getting kind of frustrated and stuff like that, you know, because they saying one thing and they changed another thing. That's the problem we're having right now. If y'all got proof, I can show y'all guys that too later on. You want to see it, you know. Thank you.
And our last speaker is John Mosby.
Good evening. My name is John Mosby, 15 Addison Avenue. Everybody know me. I've been coming to all my board meetings for over a year and something. And everybody know that I've told this board about the problem in the school system, and no one been listening. They call us troublemakers. The Mosby causes all the trouble. All the Mosby. But there you see, I got good news. I got good news for these parents. The court and them gonna take our suit. You know, I sued on behalf of discrimination. So y'all all will be benefit for it. The court done already notified me. We got it ready to go to court. And I told this board, they should be getting some serve from the sheriff in a day or two. With all these things, what these parents are saying, we've been saying before. I told Dr. Nasi, I told all of them, I'm willing to sit down and work out these things. They have totally ignored us. And Lord have mercy, in this town, all over the city, you see it's wrongdoing going on all the time. Running the poor people out of town, both black and white. We're headed to a crisis. Now, talk with the zoning, talk with the Board of Education, all the money coming in here. We don't sit on no committee, not one committee. They don't want us on nothing. Now, let me say one more thing to help these parents. And y'all don't want to tell the truth, but I'm going to tell the truth. What the problem is, y'all got rid of the human relation. We had an investigating officer supposed to investigate these things. Y'all went and got rid of human. The law requires you to have that. Bruce Morris used to be the director. They got rid of him, but you should have I'm not saying how you got rid of him, but you should replace somebody to take care of these parent complaints. That's what you used to go to. And in my suit, you're going to get it. Now, if we want to live together in this country, you're going to have to be fair. And all this vote, I'm blaming a lot of y'all sitting there here. Y'all the cause of a lot of this stuff. I ain't never seen a vote be on the vote and then be over all the committees. The state is in with you, too. The state is just as rotten as they can be. And I'm suing them, too. So I want to thank you all and let these parents know that we're not backing down. Thank you very much.
And that concludes our public comments for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick clarification. Somebody had said that the board was going to be voting on Brookside on June 7th. That is not correct. We will not be acting on Brookside on June 7th. And regarding Ms. Williams' comments, we have asked our staff to look into these questions. Obviously, we have to deal directly with the parents. We can't deal with third parties, but staff is looking into it right now. Yeah, I would encourage any of the parents who have these concerns to contact Dr. Adamowski's office, and we'll gather that information. We don't actually have any control over that school. It's not part of Norwalk Public Schools, but we do have the capacity to represent the kids.
The school placed them there.
With the agreement of the parents. Right. But if it turns out that the service they're getting at the school is inadequate, we can pull them back under the same process. So make sure that the parents directly contact the staff so we can follow up on that. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Next is Superintendent's report, Dr. Adamowski.
Thanks, Mr. Lyons. Just two comments regarding the public comments tonight. The June 7th date was mentioned. That is a workshop session. On June 7th, in the context of the revisions that are being made to the strategic operating plan as a result of all the public sessions that we have held in the last 2 months. In that context, since there are several strategies dealing with preschool, Dr. Connor will be providing some data, and there will be a discussion of this, or further discussion of this issue. We are, as was pointed out, we are investigating the High Roads allegations. That occurred, I heard from Ms. Penn-Williams last night, and that was initiated this morning. And so I have some information that I can share with the board in executive session, and then but there is also an ongoing DCF investigation that would need to run its course to provide further information. In my report tonight, this is kind of Brian McMahon night, because a lot of my report tonight will focus on Brian McMahon. You are aware that one of the measures that we track very closely relative to performance of Norwalk students compared to students in the rest of the state is the graduation rate. The graduation rates are released almost a year after the graduating class graduates, and they are released by the state. So the official state release is going to be on Monday for every school district in the state. We've had these results for the last several weeks in order to check them and see if there was any anomalies between the state calculation and our own data. So this is as close as I can get in terms of a board meeting to the release date. However, I wanted the board and our public to have this information before it simply appeared in the paper. So this is our report on graduation rates for the class of 2015. Frank, can you help me with the slides, please? So members of the public had available on their way in today a handout. That same handout is in front of the board, and it's up on the screen. All right, so you can look at any of those. I would call your attention to the first page after the cover page, and that compares the 2015 four-year cohort graduation rate, Norwalk to Connecticut. And you will note that prior to this time, and this was something that has been discussed a number of times in the context of the strategic plan discussion, that we have been trailing the state in the graduation rate. That our graduation rate has gone down over the last few years while the state has gone up. However, this year we have a different story. Due to a 5.8% increase for the class of 2015, we are now slightly ahead of the state, and the gap has been closed. Our graduation rate, Norwalk's graduation rate is 89.6%. The state graduation rate is 87.2%. And that is due to a 5.8% increase in 2015. If you look at our subgroup data, it is very, very encouraging. Our Hispanic students score a full 10 points ahead of Hispanic students in the state of Connecticut. Our black students also score a full 10 points ahead of black students in the state of Connecticut. Our white students are 2 percentage points ahead. Our ELL students, our English language learners, are 10 points ahead. Those students who are eligible for free lunch, which is the proxy for lower income, are also ahead of the state by approximately 10 points. And our special education students are ahead by 4. And we know that given the efforts, our efforts in special ed, that will be changing to a higher percentage as well. If you turn to the next page, you will see the reason for this. This is the comparison between Brian McMahon and Norwalk High School. Now, previous to this, Norwalk High School had a higher graduation rate than Brian McMahon at 91%, and certainly a very respectable graduation rate. Norwalk High School has basically maintained that between 2014 and 2015. But the change has been at Brian McMahon, which went from 86.8% to 95%, a gain of 8.2%. And it's really that gain that has pushed the district over the top and enabled Norwalk to close the first element of its achievement gap. So this is a great cause for celebration. If you look at the very last page of data in your handout, this is a disaggregation of students in the class of 2015. And you'll notice that the state is no longer publishing a dropout rate. They publish a graduation rate. The students in the still enrolled column, those are the students that are factored in the 5th year and 6th year graduation rates, which are separate calculations. Those students in the other category, those are the dropouts and students who would go to or have gone to adult ed. And they are also transfers from our high school who have not registered anywhere else, although they intended to transfer. They may have transferred out of state, and so they're not part of the Connecticut data anymore. So if you look at this sheet, there are several very significant implications. One is that our graduation rates for every group were higher than the state for all groups except for Asians. Second, 54% of the class of 2015, that's 474 students out of the 876 graduates, were high needs students, which makes this result even more remarkable. Now, you'll remember the state definition of high needs. These are students who either qualify for free lunch or are receiving special education services or are English language learners, one or more of those 3 characteristics. And so when you calculate our high needs students, their graduation rate was 84% compared to the state average for high needs students of 76.1%. Again, this also speaks to another major goal of our strategic operating plan, just to have the lowest gap of any city in the state. I think we have a cause for some celebration that our first gap has been closed. We hope that we will be able to maintain this. We often do not like to see big jumps, right, because they become harder to maintain with another cohort of students. But clearly, this kind of gain contributes to our 3-year average to the point where, we will do very well in the future. I would like, you to join me tonight in thanking Suzanne Koroshetz and the staff of Brian McMahon for their efforts. This does not happen magically. It is really the product and process of personalized instruction and the work of our counselors, the work of our teachers, the ability to support students. And it's also very much tied to relationships because the research suggests that students who have close relationships with several adults in the school have a much higher rate of persistence to graduation than those that do not. Now, Suzanne and her staff are in the midst of NEAC accreditation this week. And so despite that, she's taken a few minutes of her time, a few hours of her time tonight to be here. And Suzanne, I'd like you to come forward if you could introduce the members of your staff who are with you prior to receiving the congratulations of the board on this great achievement.
I appreciate the recognition for my teachers and my kids because this is a group effort. I think that we have a lot of great programs at McMahon, but we do this because we have great kids and teachers who work really hard to make this happen. So this is really a labor of love and a concentration of work that takes a lot of time, right? Because as kids change and their needs change, you need to change your programs and develop them and adapt them. And we're grateful to have our Apex Credit Recovery Program, which is something new that allowed this to happen, as well as a 3-year concentration on student-centered learning, I think added all into the success that we saw last year. And I have to give a lot of credit to, we had a pretty group of amazing kids who drank the Kool-Aid and did the work that we needed them to do. But I didn't do this alone, and I have only 2 colleagues because the rest of them are in bed because we have our last day of NEASC tomorrow. But I brought 2 really very special people who represent big groups of people who helped me make this happen. The first is Dawn Leeds, who is guidance chairperson, or really counselor chairperson extraordinaire. Dawn is really a driving force in how do we personalize this instruction, write student success plans, make sure that, in case you haven't noticed, we have Khan Academy is one way that we've started to personalize instruction around SAT exams. The state average for the number of kids who have signed on for this is 25.1%. Under Dawn's work, McMahon is over 70% of our kids are signed on for individualized Khan Academy instruction. That wouldn't have happened without this amazing woman who runs the counseling department. So she's here to represent amazing counselors, help me do this work. So thank you, Dawn. The second person I brought with me this evening is really the person I call the heart and soul of Brian McMahon High School. He was started as a teacher. The day that I was lucky enough to promote him to housemaster at McMahon, both my children were lucky enough to have him as their English teacher. Very different type of students, but their response to me was, "Oh, that's really awesome, Mom. You just lost your best English teacher. Good job." So Scott Hurwitz has done an incredible amount of work for every child underneath his care as a housemaster, but also he's an inspiration to the teachers. He keeps the entire administration team honest. So this work that we do is truly a team effort. I think that the board members who, thank you, Brian and Mike for joining us at our first kickoff meeting at NEASC, saw that the work we do at McMahon is really once a senator, always a senator, a family effort, and I'm blessed to have such an incredible team. As well as my families who support my work, but Scott is the heart and soul of McMahon, so I thank him publicly for all that he does for the kids and teachers at McMahon.
Suzanne,
And I have about another 150 people I could thank, but I'll stop there.
Suzanne and Dawn and Scott, could you come up, please, and accept the congratulations of the board?
Thank you. Thanks for sure. We're good.
95.
We're
This
gonna
year.
try, we're gonna try like crazy. I can't believe she's graduating. I'm gonna miss her.
She's gonna miss you too.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you so much.
I tried, I was close. Congratulations. Sure. Thanks, Scott, for everything.
I will say, Brian and I, Sunday, we're at McMahon as part of the NEASC process, and we were interviewed by the committee that is working on it, and I've been following McMahon's work on the NEASC process, which is where they get recertified, and just phenomenal job by your people. Really good job.
We have, as you know, we have 4 principal vacancies that are being filled this year. We've had a search process for that that is underway. We've had a school parent and teacher involvement process that is underway, and this will all culminate on May 26th. I'd like Mr. Costanzo, given the amount of effort and the number of people that have been involved in this, I'd like Mr. Costanzo to give you an update on the selection process.
Thank you, Dr. Adamowski. Let's see. Sorry. There it is. Great. Good evening, Board. So the Operations Office, along with the HR Office, has been working jointly on this important issue, filling 4 principal vacancies in our district of 19 schools. This process began in earnest during the first week of May. I'll take you through this visual. During the first week of May, both Dr. Diluski and myself screened close to 100 paper applications for the 4 principal vacancies in the district. We brought in more than 20 individuals for brief 30-minute face-to-face opportunities to get a sense of whether they were as strong as they appeared on paper, what their passions and commitment were to urban education, and to get a better sense of whether they had a specific school that they were interested in applying to. One of the things we did differently this year from previous years in Norwalk is that we asked applicants to apply specifically to the school that they were interested in. Now, we had some candidates that applied to one school, and we had others that applied to more than one school. One important takeaway from this process was that we saw some extremely high potential internal candidates as well as external candidates. So the board should know that we vetted both internal and external candidates that are promising. From that process, Dr. Diluski and I, sure.
Of those 20, how many kind of made it to that
12.
next cut? Okay.
And it was more than 20, but I'm ballparking above 20. We moved 12 on. But in the process of moving those 12 on, we did 8 focus groups at the schools. We did 4 parent focus groups, 1 at each school, and we did 4 staff focus groups. These focus groups were an integral part to the process. Essentially, what we asked our focus groups were 3 broad questions. What are the sorts of things that the school is doing well currently that you'd like to see continue happen? What are the areas that the school, the organization, is challenged with, and what would you like to see in terms of improvement in those areas? And then lastly, and very important, when you think about a principal that would replace the outgoing principal, what are the essential values and the beliefs and the vision that you want out of, I'm having a bad night tonight, Ralph, with this laptop. Hang on one second. I just clicked it. What are the values and the beliefs and the core vision that you want in your next principal? And so both staff and parents were more than welcome to provide their input. And we had good turnouts. We did these in the evenings for parents to accommodate parents. And with staffs, we did the staffs, they're all elementary schools, before the start of school. And the staff turned out in great numbers. Those focus groups provided us with several pages of notes that we turned into a report, and we submitted it to the school-based interview committee. So one of the steps in this process in the future will be that school governance councils will play a role in the process and the selection of their principal. In our case, because our school governance policy is in place, but the governance councils are not yet in place via the new election process, we had a combination of schools. One school didn't have a school governance council, that was Merrimack. We had another school, Jefferson, that has a school governance council, but only had staff members on it. No parents were present members. Incidentally, that's an important reason why we have this new school governance policy going into place. I think it's going to provide more consistency and improve the overall governance council membership. But the 7-member interview committees at the 4 schools were comprised of parents and staff. And ideally, they would be parents and staff coming from the existing school governance council. So in the case of Merrimack, we weren't able to do that, but we put together a very good team of parents and teachers, as well as in the other 3 schools. School-based interviews began yesterday at Brookside, and they'll continue through the end of this week. At the end of this week, we will have had 3 candidates interview with the school interview committees at each of the 4 schools that have vacancies this year. We were at Jefferson today, Dr. Deluski and I, yesterday Brookside. Tomorrow we will be at Merrimack, and we will do Kendall tomorrow night to accommodate parent requests. School-based interviews, interview teams submitted to me a set of proposed questions that would be asked of the 3 candidates. We did this for a couple of reasons. One was we wanted the focus groups to be represented at the table. So we took the notes from the focus group meetings and asked the interview committees to develop questions particular to their school's needs and what they were seeing coming out of the reports. And we saw some really terrific, unique questions that, you know, only a Jefferson parent would ask, and so forth. So those question scripts were sent to the central office. We looked at those, made some adjustments to ensure that they were aligned to the strategic operating plan, but for the most part, went with the questions that were asked by those school-based interviews teams. So this process this week will conclude, and the goal is that we will have 2 candidates from each of the schools with vacancies move on to the next round, which would take place next week on May 26th here at the central office. There'll be a smaller team comprised of the superintendent, Dr. Deluski, Human Resources Chief, Dr. Michael Connor, Chief Academic Officer, myself. There'll be 1 sitting principal from the district, and there will also be 1 parent member who will represent the interview committee in that round. We felt it was important to continue the school's presence throughout the process. From that place, we will whittle it down from 2 finalists to a single candidate, and the superintendent will be bringing those candidates forward to you. Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, the parent member, will it be 1 parent from each school since there's 4 schools? So that meaning 4 parents?
That's correct.
Yes, 4 parents, and they'll be selected by their school-based interview committee to represent them, and their responsibility is to communicate back as well.
Okay. Any other questions?
Sir? All right, thank you. Sounds very thorough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
We have really been blessed with a large number of candidates, and as Frank said, both external and internal. So this has been an area where you know, we have candidates from all over the state, and we have the best of our rising leaders here in Norwalk. So it's very exciting, and looking forward to just bringing 4 top shelf nominees to you.
Stephen, based on that timeline, you would bring that, those candidates to the board at a special meeting or maybe at the business meeting in
So
June?
I sent Mr. Lyons an email today with some options on that and a proposed date.
Probably arised while I was driving down here.
So he'll be communicating with you all on that. But yes, it would essentially be a meet and greet process of some sort. And we've suggested I think it's whatever the Tuesday is, May 30th.
May 26th.
Or May 26th, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, great, thanks.
Final item on my report tonight, I'd like to ask Ralph Valenzizi to talk with you about the, excuse me, this is like my worst allergy time of the year. But thanks to Reverend Kasimis, I have a cure now. Your last workshop, we talked about summer learning. We talked about our mandatory summer school. We talked about the incredible need for summer learning and the research that suggested that 1/2 of the achievement gap of low-income students was attributable to unequal summer learning opportunities. Under the leadership of Anthony Allison, we had this wonderful symposium at Norwalk Community College in order to raise awareness and start galvanizing the members of Norwalk ACTS around this. And as a school district, we will have a responsibility and a significant role to play in this as well, along with our partners. But I'd like Ralph to just highlight with you some of the key points and highlights of this learning opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Adamowski, and good evening, board members. So yeah, as Dr. Adamowski just mentioned, on April 30th, we had our first summer learning convening hosted by, once again, it's hosted through Norwalk ACTS, and it occurred at Norwalk Community College. And it really did bring together a lot of the community members to really kind of kick off the way we want to approach summer learning in the future. My presentation tonight is going to be really brief, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the different components that occurred during the convening. The first was research that was presented through the National Summer Learning Association. The second was a case study from the Rochester City School System on how they were able to implement their summer learning program over the last few years. And then finally, they had a funders panel that came up and investors coming in to talk about how is it that you can make a program like this sustainable and what are they looking at funding. So with that, the convening started off with this quote, which I don't like to read off slides, but this is one slide I would like to read to you because it was an interesting way to start and it really kind of struck home. It's a quote from Malcolm Gladwell. Virtually all of the advantage that wealthy students have over poor students is the result of differences in the way that privileged kids learn when they are not in school. America doesn't have a school problem. It actually has a summer vacation problem. And this can also be referred to, as it was in the convening, as what we call the faucet theory. And the faucet theory refers to students that don't have necessarily the resources outside of school, but during the year, think of the school as a faucet. The faucet's on. At that time, students have access to all the academic resources that they need. They have access to healthy meals. They have access to enrichment activities. They have access to health services. What happens during the summer for these students is that the faucet is actually turned off. And with that limited flow of resources, we end up having what we sometimes term as summer slide. There's a really good depiction of this, and I know that Dr. Adamowski and Dr. Connor have talked about this throughout the community for a while, but this is a national survey that kind of depicts very quickly the slide that you can see over a period of kindergarten through 5th grade and how students can lose a lot of ground every single summer by not having those opportunities, and it's very, very hard for them to catch up. Once again, the blue line represents students that have had those opportunities in comparison to the orange line, which represents what happens year after year after year. And you can see as the gap widens, this is something, once again, that Dr. Adamowski and Dr. Connor have talked about quite a bit about our summer programs and why this is so important. Just to highlight a couple of the items of research that were highlighted from the National Summer Learning Academy, Association. First of all, is that if we do have high-quality programs, it really will reduce summer learning loss. And there is actually proven research around this, which you've been presented in the past. It was one thing that they highlighted, very much so. They also talked a lot about summer learning programs and how not only do they contribute to academics, but contribute to students' overall health, and how important that is for students, because a lot of times these students don't have those resources outside of school. They discussed a little bit about how coupling formal and informal reading programs together and those types of supports can really help to lead to gains for students. A good example of this would be the summer literacy program at our libraries and how those can be coupled in conjunction with what we do as a school system. And also, one of the things that I thought that stuck out with me as well was that students having summer jobs actually improves attendance for them in the following school year. And I know that the mayor has a wonderful summer learning initiative for employment for students here in Norwalk, and those kinds of programs we need to make sure we continue to grow. Some items of, some best practices that the National Summer Learning Association talked about were, once again, highlighted up here. I'm not going to read through all of them. A lot of them we've discussed in the past. But a couple of the items I would like to talk about. One of them is start planning early. And, you know, Dr. Connor, as soon as he came on board, started really working towards improving our K-3 program that he's worked on for this, you know, as soon as he could. With everything else going on here. What we want to do this coming year, and I know Anthony had highlighted this, you will have a report from some of the data that we gather from all the summer learning programs in the fall. And we'd like to actually begin this. This should be a year-round process. There's never a time that you're not thinking about summer learning. We want to make sure that we continually work on this as a continuous process. Actually, that's probably the main item I wanted to talk about on this slide. So, and then finally, to end the portion with the research, some of the key steps that we want to do to make sure that this actually happens and becomes sustainable are all items that we're actually putting together. We've had our convening. We've been focusing our resources so that we can actually deliver quality programs. We're starting to get everybody to move in the same direction. And that's really key, making sure that all community members and stakeholders are working together. We're starting to get communication out there so that people know about these summer learning programs, and that will increase in this coming year. We definitely want to focus on quality, and we need to make sure that we start gathering data this year on what we're doing. And that's, I'm going to come to that in just a few minutes as well in the presentation. After the research was presented, the Rochester City School System did a small case study on what they had done over the last few years. And just some of the key takeaways from their case study were their goals and their strategy was every year that they began this, and they've been doing this for a multitude of years now, they wanted to increase their program and grow capacity by engaging more and more members of the community. And that was their mantra, and that's the way they kind of approached this, to make sure that every year there were more students involved in summer learning, no matter how they had to approach that in the community itself. Some of their best practices that they shared. Once again, data. Making sure that we actually gather data about summer learning programs, not only our own internal ones here at the school system, but ones that the community is providing. And that's something that actually I'll be addressing in just a moment, which is what Anthony Allison and I are really working on, making sure that we have those pieces in place for you. It's important to build partnerships with everybody in the community. Diversified funding was a term that was used, and I'll give you an example of that in just a moment of what that pictorially could look like, but just keep that in the back of your mind for a second. But you need to have a diversified funding structure in order to make this sustainable and successful. We also need to start thinking over the next couple of years of, as the Strive Together mantra is, to look at cradle to career. We want to make sure we start looking at students before they get to the school system, and even a lot of times once they graduate, making sure that they have summer learning opportunities and continue on the path to go into college, because a lot of times students, there is research out there that if they're not tracked, they never make it to actually that first year of college, and it's very important that we keep that in mind. And then lastly on this slide is it's important to make contact with parents, with the community, so that everybody knows about this. And this is not something that we just talk about during the summer. This is something we need to address throughout the whole school year. If it's not on the table and it's not being talked about, it won't become a high priority issue, which is something we need to make sure we keep it at that point. So diversified funding, as I mentioned before. This is a representation of how Rochester funds their programs. If you can see, basically, think of it almost really as kind of a managed portfolio or a mutual fund where you have a variety of different investors actually involved and having ownership of the program. So for Rochester, the way that this looks is that they have individual donations. They do have foundations that work with them. They have state grants. They have some local corporations that actually fund directly, and you can see that's a very small amount. They do have in-kind facility support, which means having buildings that are available to them, actually having transportation which is available to them, and I'll address that in a minute too. That's one of the key areas that we need to make sure that as a community we address. And then finally, the purple area on the bottom, that's the per pupil expenditure that's put into the operating grant, the operational funds for the Rochester City School System each year to make sure that there's funding and skin in the game from the school system to make sure these programs are sustainable. Before I get into the funding section and the last portion of this, I wanted to share with you some of the some data points that Anthony Allison has gathered. If you remember when he came to the board about a month ago, he explained that at the point of the convening, he would be looking at certain data points with a lot of our providers. These are some of the outcomes that came out of those data points. First of all, providers offer a wide range of programming here in Norwalk. You can find programs that, excuse me, let's make sure I get, okay. You can find programs that are educational, that are sports related, that are enrichment related. All the providers are at different levels of intentionality, which means that some of them are very focused programs, some of them cover a variety of different areas. The provider's data collection right now is limited, and this is something that we're going to be working on over the summer. Without data, we're not going to know how to be able to improve our programs. One of the things the providers said very much so, I think every single one of them to Anthony, was that they all want a better alignment with the school system. They want to be able to know where to meet the kids when they get to them for their summer programs. They also noticed that one of the biggest hurdles that they're running into is transportation. It seems to be the tail sometimes that wags the dog in trying to get programs like this together, but it is really important that we address that, and that seems to be the one thing that was mentioned over and over in the convening from the case study, from research. Making sure that we get kids to programs is something that has to be addressed as a district. Providers want to be able to provide more social emotional supports for students because they want to make sure that they can educate the whole child, and they see a need for that. And then on top of that, they also want to make sure that they provide more healthy alternatives in the ways of meals for students when they're in these programs. This data came from 16 different providers, and I'm not going to go through all the data points right now, but a couple of them that I did want to address. Once again, looking at the 16 providers, if you notice, only 4 of them provide transportation. 4 of them provide what we call the 6 different types of instruction, which is what Anthony kind of categorizes for our first data point, which included academic, intervention, enrichment, social emotional programming, health and wellness programs, arts, and athletics. For the most part, though, most of them were pretty much 6-hour-a-day programs. I think the data speaks for itself. The final portion of the day in the convening dealt with a funders panel. and a number of funders came up and had a discussion around how do we make these programs sustainable. A couple of key takeaways that I had with this that didn't only have to do with summer learning, but I think it's really important to be addressed because we're seeing these trends when we're working with funders. The first item there talks about funders are shifting their thinking from individual grants to systems change funding. So to put that in more concrete terms, it's going to be very hard to find funders in the future that are going to want to put a computer lab in a building. You're going to want to find funders that are going to want to help invest in making sure that all students read at the third grade level, when they hit third grade, that they're on the third grade reading level. Those are the kinds of systems changes that we're going to want to be able to see, and that's what funders are going to be looking for. The more that we work as a collective group, the better that I think we'll be able to find funders that are going to be interested in investing. They're looking for measurable impact more than innovative programs at the moment. So you'll find those little pieces of innovation, and that should be incorporated in everything that we do. But they really are, funders as a whole are looking for measurable impact. They want to be able to know, and they want to have metrics that can measure how students are achieving and are we seeing an increase from their investment. The last piece that I want to talk about was a little bit with two definitions of collaboration and shared accountability. For years, when we've built summer programs, we've done a lot with collaboration. We talk with our partners, we talk with after-school providers, summer school providers on a regular basis. The shift now is to make sure that there's actually shared accountability. And the difference between collaboration and shared accountability is that, in a nutshell, we all own these students. And we all have a vested interest, and we all take responsibility for making sure that we educate these students the way we need to. That's the shift that they want to be able to see too. Funders want to be able to see that in comparison of just working together, but actually all having skin in the game. I thought I'd put this slide up here just to give you an idea a little bit about measures that funders currently are actually interested in looking at. And these are some of the items also that have been already addressed by Dr. Adamowski and Dr. Connor in programs that we're currently implementing. They want to know about educational outcomes for underserved students. We know that we've been actually starting to track a lot more of this as in this past year. One of the items that came up was that they were very interested in knowing the impact of having credentialed teachers in teaching summer programs and after-school programs in comparison to non-credentialed teachers. Along the same lines, they wanted to know more about having the impact of having the same teachers you do during the school year teach during the summer. And in the restructuring of the way that we're offering our K-3 programs, that's some of the data that we'll be able to start to gather. And they also want to know much more about social emotional learning and how are we really looking at helping the whole child. With that, I was going to close today with just explaining a term that was used a little bit, which is called assessment of impact. And really, this term kind of stuck out with me because it really is an emerging field right now and something that funders are really looking at. The impact of what we do today and the data that we're gathering may take a few years for us to see the results. And it's important for the community, for the board, for us as a whole to understand that benchmarks may have to change in another year. So we're going to gather some initial data this year from our summer learning programs. I guess the term is perfect isn't the enemy of good. We want to make sure that we keep moving in that direction. But there may be some adjustments that we find out that we make over the years. And people need to be patient in seeing those adjustments happen. But we can't let the process stop because if we do, we lose that sense of continuous improvement. So, and it's pretty much
any questions?
Overview.
Yeah, thanks, Ralph. Transportation as a weakness in the system, as it were. Was any thought, or did we look at putting facilities and programs near the demand from the students?
I think all of this came out as of the research that we just started on April 30th. So as we move forward, this is one of the initiatives that we really do need to look at. You're right. Do we move the programs closer to a place where it makes sense, so it makes it easier for them to get?
My question comes of like, let's not build, execute the facilities master plan in a vacuum of this. Let's look at what you might need for for summer needs.
It's good.
I mean, this-
In conjunction
Very good
with the
point.
buildings, we're
Very
about
good
to.
point.
In general, this is very consistent with, looking at the operation of school during the year. More students walking, fewer having to be bused. Makes a big difference, not only during the year, but in our capacity to offer summer programs. This was an impetus, or one of the reasons why we went to school-based summer school this year. So we didn't have to bus children as far, in most cases, but also to position ourselves so that as the facilities master plan unfolds, there is more offered at the point of the child's neighborhood and school.
Heidi?
Thank you, Ralph. Very comprehensive report and interesting as well. A couple questions. Once this gets going and started, I know it's 5 days a week, I think 5 or 6 hours a day, 6 hours a day?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
actually probably Dr. Connor could explain a little bit more about our specific program, yes, but.
How many weeks are we looking at throughout the summer?
5 weeks?
July 5th till August.
July.
So about 6 weeks, okay. I'm definitely a fan of this, especially for our at-risk students. I think we need to do something like this, and I think the quality of the program is key, critical, and reviewing the data. And I think once this gets up and going and where it's housed and how many students and what we're looking at, having some kind of survey, and I'm projecting down the road, but a survey maybe with parents, teachers, and students, how the program is doing. Because, we have our program in our high schools where children are entering from 8th to 9th grade, some of our summer programs.
Yes.
And that's not this, but I think I know from the feedback I've received, it's just so critical having these students going in, from middle school to high school, which is different than this, I realize that.
Actually, the data that's here, those 16 providers, the Carver Center is one of those providers, and it is the part of the data that we'll be gathering is that 8th to 9th grade bridge program. We're also looking at other programs. Today I just had a discussion with the Housing Authority that has summer programs, and they're actually looking at how do we meet the students where their needs are when they come in. So we're looking at data sharing agreements to make sure that they actually have the NWEA assessments. They know where they stand at, in dibbles and math, so that they can make sure that they continue that process and help any way they can over the summer.
And also another piece of this puzzle, reading through this, the Mayor's Summer Youth Program is so critical and crucial to our students going through that. It's just a matter of getting the funding and what businesses are able to participate in keeping that program going, but also it teaches these children lifelong skills that they have working, and it shows the data's there showing that if they're working, they're more apt to want to go to school, be part of school, and have that sense of ownership and responsibility early on.
Yeah, it's that sense of professionalism too, and that's, I think, where the attendance piece kind of comes in, that they really learn that.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Just one other factoid, and again, Ralph, that was a great report. It was mentioned at one point, interesting statistic or estimate, that it would cost about $2,000 per student to offer a good 6-week program. And the 6 weeks is important because you'd limit the breaks during the summer to 2 weeks on each end. And I think the direction that, if there was a learning from this, based upon what Rochester and Providence, I guess was the other district, have done, it would lead us toward the establishment of a venture capital fund that might be a public-private partnership in which the board would make some contribution towards that $2,000 that would be matched by contributions of other donors and members of Norwalk Acts, and some of these could be in-kind contributions, others could be actual funding. So, having gone through one budget now, we have all kinds of goals for the next budget. But this is certainly an important one and we're going to be doing our best thinking around how to approach this so that incrementally each year we can have more and more students who need not to have an interruption in their learning, be able to have that opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to actions. First item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which is 2A, approval of personnel, 2B, approval of budget transfers. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Ms. Smooths, is there a second? Ms. Barber seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Mosby.
On the budget transfers for special ed, Will there be more expense in this area? Hey, how are you?
Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the question.
Special ed, for the expense for teachers, will there be more expense, going further with this?
For the remainder of this year, yes, there will be more transfers that will be necessary. We were covering some of the larger ones that we had identified at this point, but there will be some additional transfers, certainly both in special education as well as areas outside of special education.
So we're getting close to, for the end of the year, are we getting close to the mark where it's overextending?
No, I think, yeah, we're expecting to end the year within our budget, but we will need to certainly transfer money from, some areas that have excess funds to areas where those funds are needed.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the consent calendar, please indicate. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item is approval of purchase of middle school social studies textbooks for $237,160. Mr. Kasimis.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to ask Ms. Tally Negroni if she wouldn't mind coming up and just quickly explain the process that her group had gone through to make this selection. But this did come through our curriculum committee, was voted on unanimously. These are the books, new textbooks that will be put in place for all social studies programs, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I'd like to commend them. They did a very, very good job making their selection.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Adamowski, Mr. Lyons. Our social studies quest to improve and to align with the Common Core and purchase new materials started about 2 years ago when Norwalk High School started going through accreditation, and we realized that we needed to do something about updating the materials and realigning the curriculum. And so for those first 2 years, we worked with the high school, and then last year we started working with middle schools to make that alignment from 6 through 12. We've had all 4 middle schools participating, at least 3 teachers from each of the buildings participating in the committee. We've worked with a social studies consultant from CREC, up in the Hartford area, who's come down to work with the teachers to provide professional development, to help them review the materials. I have to say that Mr. Pennington was also on the committee, was my right arm and left arm. He kept me going through this whole thing. And we reviewed a number of different textbook companies that have new materials coming out this year, and we came to a decision after a very robust pilot. And maybe, Rob, would you like to come up and talk about the pilot? Because Rob actually helped us create the pilot. Come on, Barb.
Speaking a lot more than you expected tonight.
That's right. Well, I didn't expect this either, so. But I will say there were 3 parts to the pilot, and Rob was the person who helped collect the data electronically and otherwise, and I'm going to let him give you a quick rundown.
So we had 3 teachers pilot 6th, 7th, and 8th grade materials, and we collected data from the teachers and from the students on what they thought of the materials and how it aligned with our curriculum design that we've been working on. From that data, we also gave authentic performance assessments, and we used both data points to kind of make a decision on what textbook would best support as a resource for our students.
Going forward, once these materials are approved, we will be working this summer to complete the curriculum alignment and, more importantly, the resource alignment, and we will begin to create APTs, performance assessments for each of the units, so common across the 4 middle schools, so we have a common assessment across all the schools.
Thank you. My appreciation to the teachers also for being willing to pilot those materials. I know that's been done in the past I see Mary Orden back there. She did that with one of the world languages programs, and it really gives us a much better sense of what we're buying than if we just, take it off the shelf, so.
Absolutely. Makes a
thank
big
the
difference
teachers
when
for
teachers
doing
have had a chance to look at it. They're already, I get emails 2 or 3 times a day. When are we going to have a chance to look at what we actually decided? Because all these materials that we're proposing are published this year, 2016 publication date. So they're very fresh and very new, and teachers are anxious to get started planning.
Good. So is there a motion to approve the purchase? So moved by Mr. Kasimis. Is there a second? Cheryl Harris seconds. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of the purchase, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next on the hit parade is approval of revised policy 5113 on attendance. That's over to you, Ms. Keys, and I know Mr. Kasimis' committee also looked at this.
Yeah, I know, originally, Mr. Kasimis' curriculum committee looked at it. We had a presentation by Scott and Adam, 2 of our housemasters, who did an amazing presentation with Dr. Connor. Curriculum unanimously approved it. They sent it over to policy, we reviewed it. We had a presentation. I believe the original policy was adopted back in 1985. It was amended, I believe, in 1995, so it's over 20 years that we've looked at it, especially considering that we'll be going to block scheduling. If Dr. Connor, if you'd like to talk a little bit more about this policy, if you'd like, but I think it's time, considering especially the block scheduling, reviewing it through curriculum and policy. We approved it unanimously. I think we're ready to hopefully have action on it tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
How would you describe the major changes?
The major change is pretty much moving from the decimal system for the credits lost to either full credit that you receive or you receive no credit at all. Again, like I said earlier, the competition within our universities and colleges, they are looking at the credits, and when they're looking at the credits and they're seeing really skewed numbers, as I call 22.6, 22.7, is really throwing off the competitiveness with the students. So being able to matriculate formally without any questions is something that we want to be able to do for our students that are graduating Brian McMahon High School as well as Norwalk High School. And then 2, just being having credits where there's all or nothing, just moving away from the Hing, the famous Hing within the district, to a true credit model where students are receiving half-year credit, whether it be a semester course or full-year credit, full credit for a full-year course, or if they don't adhere to the actual attendance policy that's been outlined within the policy that you guys received in your packet, students will be able to receive credit or not receive credit. So essentially, we're moving away from the Hing, as we should say, within the district.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. Anyone make the motion to approve the policy?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
So moved. Second by Mr. Kasimis. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving the revised policy 5113, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is appointment of Chief Talent Officer. I'll turn this over to you, Dr. Adamowski.
Yes, very pleased to be able to nominate Cherise Sherry as our new Chief Talent Officer tonight. The board had an opportunity to meet her the other evening. I'll give you, just for members of the benefit of the public, a little bit about her background. She has had significant experience of a strategic nature in human resources in both public and private sectors. She's currently the Chief Talent Human Resources Officer for the New London Public Schools. She has launched, overseen, developed a number of innovative programs and systems in recruiting, hiring and selection, staffing and deployment, information and technology, compensation, benefits, performance management, and career development. Prior to serving in New London, she was Director of Human Resources for the State Education Resource Center, also known as CERC in Middletown, where she created the first human resources function at CERC. She is has been involved in the implementation of HIRS, HR metrics, the Apple Track, ADP, HR, and has also had experience with employee self portals. Her private experience includes HR roles at Comcast, Hartford Hospital, Talent Fusion, and the AP Wright Manufacturing Company. She earned her MBA with the concentration in HR Management and Labor Relations from the New York Institute of Technology, and holds a BS in Business Administration from Fitchburg State College. And we're just looking forward to her leadership, her experience, and I think given her background, she's going to be able to take us to the next level. One of the most important aspects of our reform strategy is the talent development function, because without that, we do not have the capacity to implement our strategic operating plan. So I'm very pleased to nominate Charisse, and look forward to her work with us in Norwalk.
All right, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. Sherry as our new talent officer. Ms. Keys moves, Brian seconds. Any other discussion? All right, I will, yes, Shirley, please.
I just, after reviewing both candidates, I would like, after tonight or sometime, to get a copy of their contract so I can see the language and the compensation part in the contract. Because you know, there was only just this sheet of their qualification, in which I've already met them, and they're very, very good, qualified people. It's just that I'd like to get a copy of the contract, and I know that these positions are a dire needed position, and we really need to get someone in. But if you can send myself and the board, a copy of their contracts, so that we can see the language and the compensation that's in it. Thank you.
Okay, we will make sure that happens. All right, so any other discussion? I will say I'm very pleased to have Ms. Cherry about to join us here, and I'm also, we were very impressed with your interview, and also the fact that you have extensive private sector experience as well as public sector experience. Makes it sort of a unique resume that we're pleased to see. Anything else? All right, all in favor of approving the appointment, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Congratulations.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Adamowski. Thank you so much for your kind words. First, I wanted to just thank the board for your support, thank Dr. Adamowski for your support. It was truly a pleasure meeting with you earlier this month and learning more about your individual wants for the district, and so it was a pleasure, and I'm excited to join the district. I look forward to partnering with the board members, the leadership, the district leaders, staff, union, and other stakeholders to develop a talent strategy and a talent function, first of all. But really, the talent strategy and the talent function will support recruitment and retention, promote career growth, and build capacity across the district. So I look forward to working with you, and I'm very excited to be with you. Thank you.
All right, so we move to the next item on the agenda, which is appointment of Chief Talent, I'm sorry, I just did Chief Talent Officer. Appointment of Chief of Specialized Learning and Student Services. Dr. Adamowski.
Thank you. Dr. Lynn Topper is the nominee for the position of Chief of Specialized Learning and Student Services. Since 2011, Dr. Topper has been principal of the CREC Discovery Academy. This is a pre-K-5 system magnet elementary school in the greater Hartford area. And under her leadership as the founding principal, Discovery Academy has been awarded Magnet Schools of America's highest honor for 3 consecutive years, the Excellent Merit Award. She has served as the school's instructional leader, including special education, 504 compliance, evaluation, cultural competence, technology, data collection. And her work includes the recruiting and hiring of teacher staff, PBIS, overseeing an $8 million school operating budget, and overseeing 4 construction projects to accommodate yearly expansion, along with planning and oversight of the new permanent building in Weathersfield. We had hoped that we could attract to this position a strong leader that had actually run an organization, in addition to a leader who had strong content knowledge and expertise in special education. Dr. Topper was a special education consultant for the Connecticut State Department of Education. And in that role, she served as a mediator, lead consultant for students with disabilities on the least restrictive environment initiative, and with other consultants to revise CSED guidelines for identification of students with learning disabilities. She was appointed the CSD's designee on the University of Connecticut's Council, Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. Her prior experience includes roles as Director of Special Education in Andover, Connecticut, and a special education teacher in West Hartford and Suffield schools. She earned her doctorate in educational leadership from the University of Hartford. She holds a Master's of Arts in Special Education from St. Joseph's College in West Hartford and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Connecticut in Storrs. And she is certified as an administrator as well as a pre-K special education teacher. Again, she brings to us a broad expertise in special education, as well as experience in how to strategically move an organization and attain strategic goals. We're extremely encouraged by her grasp of the correct recommendations and how to proceed to accomplish those within our organization. And I think we have found the person that we had hoped for in this area.
Thank you. All right. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. Topper. I'm going to go with Val, since you're the head of the committee that's most relevant. And I'll second Mr. Kasimis. Any other discussion? Ms. Mosby?
I just want to say that I'm glad to hear that you're willing to think outside of the box and bring people to the table, and that's something that we really need. This is a position that we had for years been trying to get this under control, and I'm wishing you the best, all the luck in the world, because we really need this, because we've lost so many children over the years going through this process, and I'm hoping that it will stop where you are at, at this point. And the fact that during our interview, you said you're willing, you're out of the box thinker, and that you would love to have people come to the table, and you're open to all of that, is something that I was very impressed with, and I do wish you a lot of luck with this.
Other comments, Adele?
Just a brief comment. I just wanted to welcome you, and thank you for your transparency in terms of talking with you, and I'm looking forward to your interactions with the parents. The parents are very much looking forward to having someone they can work with and interact with, and that's the impression that I got when we met. The other thing I like to say is I like your trajectory. You have a very nice balance of depth and breadth, and I'm sure that your connections with the state and other individuals across the state of Connecticut will help us out in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay, I will again also extend my thanks for your willingness to take this job. It's a big one, and we've had a lot of fits and starts here. I will say that I think there's a real seriousness on the part of the board and the administration to this time get it right. We went back to CREC. We got the report fully updated. We put together a 3-year plan on how we can implement the CREC recommendations. We've got CERC lined up to work with you when you come in. And now if we can just get the Board of Estimate to cash up $3.6 million next month, we'll have the funding in place for you to do it as well. So we're really looking forward to your to joining us and getting this thing moving in the right direction. All right, unless there's any other comments, we'll proceed to a vote. All in favor of approving Dr. Toper to this appointment, please indicate. And that is unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you, Board of Ed members and Dr. Adamowski, for this incredible opportunity. I'm thrilled to be able to join Norwalk and be a part of such an esteemed group of professionals. I am truly honored by this appointment and look forward to serving the needs of the Norwalk families and staff. I also want to thank everyone that I had a chance to meet during my earlier visits for being so welcoming and enthusiastic about this next chapter for Norwalk. A special note of thanks to Dr. Cicchetti for assuming many of these duties over the past several months and for keeping things in order for my arrival. I'm anxious to get started in July.
Thank you. All right. We'll now move on to section 7 of the agenda. We'll start information reports with the April 2016 monthly financial report. Mr. Hamilton.
Okay, very quickly, you do have the April report in your package. We are now 83% of the way through the fiscal year and 80% of the way through the school year. As you can see from the report, we have expended approximately 75% of the budget. So from a high level, we are in still remain in good shape. There aren't really any new issues to bring to your attention, but just to highlight a few of the bigger items here. On the wage accounts in total, we are currently about 73% expended. Now, it is important to recognize that we have 10-month employees, many of whom elect to be paid over 12 months. So that's the reason why that number is running a little below where we are at this point in the fiscal year. We do an analysis, and we are tracking to come in slightly under budget overall in our wage accounts. So we do believe that we're in good shape on the wage accounts. Benefits, again, we're in reasonable shape on benefits. We do expect, as you know, because of some overruns in the special education area, to make some reductions to the contribution for health insurance, but that has at this point been discussed multiple times by the board, and so that's nothing new to report there. In the professional and technical service areas, this is where we have the other professional and technical services, the 330 account, which is driven primarily by special education. Currently have spent about 71% of the adjusted budget there. You may recall last month we did transfer money into that account, and again, that was a transfer related to professional services for special education. And we do meet regularly, really on a weekly basis with the special education leadership to review those variety of issues dealing with special education, including the status of their budget accounts. Property services are pretty much running on track at about 73% through this point in the fiscal year. And again, we had made some transfers to cover some of the items last month, and there may be some additional transfers here. But again, I think in total we expect to come in budget or within budget in property services. The 500 series accounts, other services, includes transportation, which is 95% budget expended, but we prepay most of that transportation expense because the vendor gives us a pretty significant discount for prepaying that. So, so again, we don't expect to be over budget there. And also in the 500 series accounts, you see the out-of-district tuition running at about 70%. Again, there are a number of bills, so we expect that that will be fully expended, and we will be transferring some money into that account at the end of the fiscal year. In the Supply and material accounts were about 77% expended. As you know, we did transfer money into electricity, which is an area we were running a little high on compared to budget, so we now are in good shape there. And overall, we expect those accounts to end the year within budget or perhaps slightly under, which would allow us to transfer to those other areas where we'll need it. Equipment, likewise, we're at about 75% of the budget, so I expect that will be fully expended by the end of the year. And then the last few objects, again, about 75% expended. So that's the update on where we are. Obviously, we're coming down to the end of the fiscal year, so I do expect there'll be a requirement to bring forward a number of additional transfers in your next couple of meetings.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Next is committee reports. Start with Dr. Crevecoeur.
We met and we had a first little workshop type of discussion meeting whereby we discussed Dr. Adamowski's plan because he came to our first meeting. Then we talked about the operations that's currently happening in the district, and we had Dr. Cicchetti come and present at the second meeting, and along with 4 administrators in the district, special administrators. So at our last meeting, what we did was we just rehashed what was expressed to us and discussed in terms of timelines and priorities where we might be able to start. It was more of a brainstorming session because designing a timeline or establishing a timeline would need to be done in conjunction with the new chief.
Right.
And also to see where we are when we start in the fall. So that's where we are right now.
The money.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you. Brian, anything going on in finance?
Yeah, so finance will convene for a regular monthly meeting on May 25th at 6:30, regular scheduled time. Expectation is we'll discuss some transfers. We may or may not have some operationalized allocations in terms of school budgets. Just want to kind of give a shout out to Tom for burning the midnight oil to get student-based budgeting in our half step done this year. It's a lot of work and it's coming together.
Good. Thank you. What's next from policy?
Policy, a lot going on, as usual, which is
usual.
good. We are looking at, during our last meeting, we discussed non-resident students potentially entering the district illegally. So we really want to delve into that and look into that. Ralph had put together a fairly comprehensive policy that he looked at other districts, Greenwich, Stratford, among others. So we're going to look into that a little further. A critical key to this part of the puzzle is to hire a potential investigator. So we can look into that as well. So we've looked at the policy, we've made some changes, we have a draft. We want to revisit it again during our next policy meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, on negotiations, we're at startup phase right now with the technicians union, ESG, and the custodians. We haven't exchanged substantive proposals yet. It's pretty much just setting rules and scheduling meetings, but we have begun the process with those 3 unions, and 2 more will be following shortly.
Mike, can I interrupt? I'm sorry. As a liaison, if I could just add something for student governance councils, I just wanted to give a quick report, if you don't mind.
Sure.
We've had several meetings. Dr. Connor, Ralph has been there as well. We've had quite a few discussions, collaborative. We've had principals, administrators, myself as a liaison, parent volunteers as well, coming together, talking about block scheduling, so potentially having an 80 to 90-minute block, incorporating science and social studies on an A-B schedule, and each school having almost a different theme and working together. So again, we're going to have another meeting, I believe, this coming Thursday, as well, to delve into this and discuss it further as well. To piggyback on top of that, today we kind of had a field trip. Mike came, Dr. Adamowski, Dr. Connor. We went to Hartford Magnet Middle School, which is HMMS. We went to visit their school. They have an amazing program. They have a middle school with a high school. And then across the street, they have Trinity College. And just to see a middle school that's effective, that's been redesigned, They've been able to close the achievement gap, one of the few in Hartford that's really been able to do that and be very successful. So it was really a very productive meeting. We actually visited a lot of the classes, saw students, spoke to students. A hot topic was uniforms. They had uniforms, and we discussed that during our student governance council. So they'll be able to decide each individual school if they're interested in having uniforms or not. But it was just eye-opening to see another school actively participating in this and really successfully redesigning their middle school.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Before I go into my committee reports, I will follow up one thing on Heidi. What was really interesting is these students, they take a class in 6th grade, which was called
It's like a
Lifestyle.
It's like a social skills.
Life skills. And it was
Totally.
amazing, the
Yeah.
engagement with these kids. It was like they were 25 years old. They looked you in the eye, they smiled, they were engaging, you had a conversation. We had lunch with these kids. We went in every classroom. They're like, go talk to those kids. And these kids were so engaging, mostly 6th graders. It was really, I have to say, like sometimes, you're pushing, is that what really a school system should be doing? But I have to say, the results, it was really, really, these kids were amazing. And the other thing is, I can't say I've been a big believer in uniforms, but without fail, every single one of these kids, because we asked all these kids,
how you felt about it.
how did you do about this? And they all love the uniforms. And this is a school, because of Chef O'Neill, it's a mix of kids from the suburbs and from the city of Hartford. And we asked, and at the encouragement of this amazing principal, she was like, ask these kids, why are they here? And it was really, we heard it all. It was really, I had not had that much interaction with a set of students in some time. It was great.
When you mentioned the social skills training, or life skills, call it social skills, but life skills training, all these kids, we went up to them, we went to classes, computer, tech, woodworking kind of, they're all different classes. So we studied science and walked in and actually visited these classes. But these kids, especially in 6th grade, they were so comfortable in their own skin. They just looked at us. They didn't know who we were until after, when we introduced ourselves, but just very comfortable in their environment, and it was very impressive.
Yeah, so it was good. It was a good day. So thanks. It's Dr. Adamowski's connection. Even one of the custodians recognized him. So he hadn't been forgotten.
That's the only way I got into the building.
I am chair of the facilities committee. We have been we have not met recently. We are planning to meet next week. We did talk, especially at the last, at all the strategic operating plan presentations. I went to all 5 of them. Something came up, but at some of them more than others. At the last one, we had a really good, involved conversation. We talked about a lot of things publicly we haven't really delved into yet in terms of the logistics of when we renovate our older schools, what would happen to those students, where would they go? We'd have to move them out. What's kind of list are we looking at in terms of what order? It was very, very productive, and I think we'll continue with that discussion at our next facilities committee meeting. Probably the most relevant or most important issue that's outstanding is the facilities utilization study did propose building a K-5 school in South Norwalk on the same site as, or adjoining the current Nathaniel Ely preschool. We really believe that could be limiting the members of this facilities committee, and so we're really looking into seeing if we could combine the preschool with the building we would like to build, which could be a magnet K-8 school. The Ely preschool was rebuilt with some state funding or state loan, so it's pretty technical, pretty legal. We've engaged our attorneys, and there's a discussion going on with a number of people in Hartford, and we're hoping to have some, we've picked up some news, but we learned some new things this week, so it's work in progress. So we're proceeding along, and you'll hear more next week. I have been also, it's not a committee per se, but I have joined the Wellness Committee, which is not a Board of Ed committee, but is a committee of a joint venture, or not joint venture, but it's kind of like a mini Norwalk Acts of different people concerned about student health, nutrition, from people from the health department, from our schools, nutritionists, and some outside, I don't know, I wouldn't call them vendors, but suppliers. And they are working hard on a policy right now. It's quite lengthy. Both Ralph and Brenda partake in this, and they'll be making a proposal to the policy committee. I really got sucked into this looking at food and how we're providing food. We spent lunch at Brian McMahon last week, and we're really trying to improve our food service offerings because I think most of us would agree that we could be doing better than we've been.
Okay. Mr. Kasimis, any reports?
Yes, I have two things on the athletics front. Every year, well, the past 2 years, we've been doing a Yankees camp here in Norwalk, and we're going to do another one this year in June. We were able to get 5 scholarships from the Yankees this year, and we awarded them 2 weeks ago to 5 Norwalk kids. So they'll be attending the Yankees camp for free. Great. That was a nice thing. Also, Brian McMahon always has a Senior Athlete Awards brunch on June the 14th this year. All board members are invited if they'd like to go, but you need to tell Mr. Joe Metaferri by June the 3rd.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right. We'll next go to board member announcements. Any announcements from board members?
A real quick one. I passed an email on to all of you from Mr. Larry Anastasia over at Norwalk High School. He's hosting the St. Baldrick's event once again. He's not asking for any board member to have their head shaved. He's just asking for support. So if you'd come on out, I mean, if you guys want your head shaved, it's okay. But they're just looking to raise money for fight cancer.
Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah, Mary and I went to the jazz event by West Rocks and Norwalk High Jazz Ensembles Friday night, and blown away again. It's good to see my trumpet teacher from West Rocks, Jeff Belagama, still over there, and Chris Rivera. I mean, if this guy's not going for Teacher of the Year, I don't know. I don't know who else. It just does an amazing job on like every front of these music programs. So it's a good time. Everyone, try to get to those if and when you can. You won't be disappointed.
Good. Anything else? Okay. All right. Last item of regular business, approval of the minutes. We'll start with the minutes of the April 19 meeting. Is there a motion to approve minutes? Okay, Brian moves. Is there a second? No second? Well, I'll second it.
Which one are we doing first?
April 19th. Any corrections?
I had
Mosby?
something. Hold on.
There were a few corrections.
Yeah, I have
Okay.
some too.
Page 4 of 8, and most of these corrections are just the votes for the, we got it all off, so we're just trying to get them correct. The motion to approve amended policy 9010, it did not pass unanimously. It was 5 approved, 1 no, and 1 abstention.
That's correct.
Yep.
We'll make that correction.
Then on page 5 of 8, for policy 1211, it's a motion passed with 5 votes in favor, 1 opposed, and no extension. It was 6 that approved, 0 no, and 1 extension, and, that.
That's correct. Okay, any other corrections? Ms. Harris?
It doesn't have Ms. Mosby listed as being in attendance.
Yep.
No. We'll add that in. Okay. Any other changes? Hearing none, we'll proceed to.
Mr. Chairman,
Artie?
on page 7 of 8, I don't know if my computer's not acting correctly, but it looks like something is written twice. Am I seeing it wrong? It's probably doubling up on my screen.
Hit refresh.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
What do you see repeated?
It says, Mr. Anderson moved to approve the minutes of the meeting March 15th, then April 5th.
Second of the motion.
Yeah.
We did 3 sets of
We did
minutes.
3 sets.
We did 3 sets, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's okay. Looking
I
at
think they're accurate.
Yeah, okay, yeah, because mine's cut off for some reason.
Oh, no, I'm not here.
Okay, then, all right, then we're fine.
Okay. One thing, excuse me. And the approval of the minutes for April 5, where Mr. Anderson seconds. You just got to correct the spelling there. There's a E missing in Anderson. All right, so with those corrections, all in favor of approving the minutes, please indicate. And that is, what do we got, 6, all opposed, abstentions? Oh, wait a minute, all right, let's do it again. All right, all in favor?
Are we doing April 19th?
Yes. April 19th.
Oh,
April 19th.
you mentioned April
19th.
5th.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all opposed? None. Abstentions? 2. Okay. Bell and Heidi. All right, next is the minutes of May 3, 2016, which is a pretty simple one. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Kasimis moves, second, Ms. Keys. Any changes or corrections?
Yes, I was in attendance.
Okay. Note that Dr. Crevecoeur was present. All right. Any other corrections? Ready?
I always move to adjourn, as Mr. Barbas is moving to adjourn.
That's right.
Just got to change that. He's second.
I think that needs to be flipped.
Yes, just flipped.
It was Kasimis moved, Barbas seconded. Let's get that right.
Right.
All right. All in favor of approving the corrected minutes, please indicate. All opposed? Motion carries. All right. Last item on the agenda is executive session. The chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of employment of identifiable personnel and contract negotiations. Is there a motion? Mr. Kasimis moves. Second, Ms. Keys. All in favor? All opposed? And we are in executive session. We'll take our usual 5-minute recess.